there. Didn't know if I was on or not, but here we go. We are in the last book in the trilogy. And this is called The Finale by Calvin Miller. And we're going to begin with chapter 6. Hell's logic consists in preventing murder by murdering all murderers. Heaven's logic greets every murderer with grace, dying when the time comes with a beatific face. On the evening following the passing of Varge, Dreamer finished his portion of gruel. He walked to one of the abandoned caverns to be with those Singarians who shared the drudgery of Elon's mines. They met to sing their ancient songs and pray, but this was a special night. On the eve before, a miner had laid aside the seal of Elon and had become unchained. And on this night he waited to receive the stigmon of the troubadour. While some Singarians knelt and sang the star song, the miner felt the joy of wet earth in his palm. He felt a young man trace the singer's sign upon his brow and heard him say, "Remember, as your hand is stained, that his was crushed and torn by pain, that men of Terra fully know there is no depth he would not go to love. Earthmaker, singer, and invader be the substance of infinity." After the rite, they read the passages of hope from the finale. The brazen chain of Elan slept in dust beneath their feet as they sang. He comes in power. Rejoice. The hour of Jubilee is near. Lift up the cry. Before we die, our singer will appear. Finally, they broke the crushed loaves and ate the singer's meal. While he in reverence held his portion of the bread, Dreamer closed his eyes and felt awareness ebbing. He fought, but invaders swirled in brightness all around him, sweeping through his hesitation. The trumpet sounded, and vivid colors blew away the mist. He stepped back in astonishment from the crystal chair. Ansand was in armor. Its gilded surface flashed like fire in the glassy chair. Dreamer beheld the splendor of Earthmaker's court of love. Lightning struck an opaque sphere resting in the center of the crystal chair. Sound and light shot outward. Sorrow comes to Terra. She wastes in furnaces of holocaust. Nothing can remain. The planet has nowhere now to rest but in the ashes of rebellion. The phoenix screamed above the chair. Wind shall push the flame of war and drive the smoke of suffocation through the world, till peace has bled a deep, immortal scar across the hope of every nation. Never can there come release, for Terra has despised Earthmaker's love. Destruction! Destruction! The world haters' fitful craze beheaded time and slaughtered days, ignited truth and left the universe ablaze. The phoenix flew upward, shrieking as she fled. Let Lifeland know of Terra's sin. Let the drama now begin. Sit, court of evermore. A troop of players at the door. Enact the drama of the end. A trumpet sounded, and Act 1 began. A small blue ball rolled out in air, and a tiny world was born. Mountain chains erupted, and continents emerged upon the sphere. Untouched by any hand, the globe revolved. It turned slowly and unsteadily at first, then spun faster, then with fury. Then it issued fire and smoke. Then presently it flashed, exploded into flame, and disappeared. A troupe of actors entered. One darkly dressed, strutted onto the starry stage. He snapped his fingers, holding out his hand. The small blue ball appeared again upon his open palm. Applause filled the court of the glass chair, but the actor sneered and snapped the fingers of his open hand. A sword appeared, whose hilt he grasped. He raised the sword in startling suddenness and plunged it in the sphere. Blood washed down the blade and drenched his hand in red. Horror filled the court. "Die, Terra!" he cried out. The other actors, stunned by this obscenity, seemed paralyzed. The little ball convulsed. The evil actor gloated on the gore, threw back his giant head and rasped in fiendish laughter. Anson sensed the evil of the drama and leapt up on the stage. The other players fell away and left the swordsman face to face. "Give back the wounded world," the Golden Knight cried out. "Never," shrieked the Black Knight. "It is Lifeland's greatest love. Love cannot save it now." The Black Knight threw the bloody globe into the air and swung his giant sword completely through the wounded mass. It split in two. It burst in flame and fell. The swordsman laughed. "Love it quickly, Anson, for there is little left to love." Anson dropped his sword and rushed to grasp the pieces of the broken globe. He could not let them go. He thrust the bleeding half-worlds underneath his cloak and smothered the flame. His cape was fouled by smoke and blood. He placed the broken halves together and carried them reverently to the small, translucent plane before the crystal chair. One by one, the actors lowered their eyes and passed before the grimy ball. They cried in one lament. Love is done. Hate has won. Earthmaker's light is gone. The night sky's queen is slain. Hate has entered Lifeland and murdered at the throne of love. Anson wept, and all of Lifeland with him. In crushing suddenness, the sword of the Black Knight pierced Anson's armor and sent him sprawling on the floor. While the Golden Knight's attention was on the injured sphere, the black actor had advanced and swung his heavy blade into the golden shoulder guards. The plate had given way. Anson reeled and drew his sword. "Come, Lord of Hate, come to the blade of truth," he spoke to his dark foe. Dreamer suddenly recognized the evil face of the Lord of Hate, the Prince of Mirrors. In fury, then, the Titans met. The lightning flashed each time the huge swords fell. Twice Anson fell beneath the Black Knight's blows. Each time he quickly rose as the evil actor approached the small translucent plane to abuse the wounded world. Anson defended it. Gradually, the black actor weakened, and Anson delivered a heavy blow to his helmet. A second strike fell soundly on the breastplate of the Lord of Hate. It split away. The Black Knight cried out in his nakedness. The other actors broke into applause and shouts of joy. When Anson saw his enemy unprotected, he drew back his blade to plunge it in the heart of universal hate. But the Black Knight flung himself over the battlements and was lost among the stars. Anson collapsed, fatigued in victory. He knew the world hater had plunged to Terra, furious in defeat. He knew that he must follow when his hands were healed and his wounded shoulder well enough to bear the agony of battles yet to come. The charade was nearly over, and the Phoenix came again. "Now is the drama ended as once it was begun. The same hate wounds the golden night that mauled the earth-maker's son. Rejoice, the war of fire is won, for terror rolls across the void and tumbles into sun. The singer comes. The singer came. He picked the broken world from off the shelf and held it high and shouted out, "Behold, the old is gone. The new alone remains. The spirit zephyrs drive a healing flame. No world is ever wounded unto death. Now this little globe receive her atmosphere, the Father's Spirit's living breath." Incandescence flashed about his hand, and when the light had died away, the world was blue again. Terra 2. Chapter 7. A god too large to walk in human shoes has outgrown every hope of human use. And heavy skeptics weighted down with doubt can never rise to find what God's about. Dreamer found it was time to leave, but feared to go where the drama was reality in process. He took the street of monoliths that led beyond the chair of glass. He crossed the azure plain to the final bridge and saw the band of gray that marked the place where materiality infringed upon foreverness. He paused and looked at the pinnacle of light. Flying from the spire, a golden banner commemorated Anson's wound and denounced that the universe was now at war. He knew that down the street of monoliths was soon to come the army Terra never could withstand. The promise the finale spoke was real. Truth would dawn upon the doubt below. The singer was coming. The golden knight would not leave his side till the world hater had been conquered. He would fight until the emperor was vanquished and the Volcans were slaughtered in the airy empire of fear which they inspired. At the entrance to the bridge, he sat to stare upon the land he loved. He heard the swelling currents from the armories of light. The knights were lost in their own servitude of grace. The cadence of their anthem swelled from monolith to monolith and rang across the azure plain. The multitudes imprisoned soon shall sing of greater light. There are no days more splendid than the days before the end, whose armies can reach out with fire. The singers' knights soon march with one great honor to defend. He is king. He is lord, singer, prince, and troubadour. This scene he loved, but could not stay. He closed his eyes and felt the shock of transport. A volley of cold air pierced his soul, and he was back on Terra. He could hear the voice of the world hater preaching in another cavern. Man is the hope of men, the hater taught. Behold hope in the glass. I have taught this great redeeming hope in every land, beyond the steppes of Vaj and Thade. In 100 cities I have laid the final hope of men where it belongs. Let us wear the chain of Elan and sing across the globe the anthem of the glass. He paused, and Dreamer heard the miners sing the hymn of man. The gods are dead, and without dread we cheer. Join hands to reach and cry, we shall not pass. We sing in confidence without fear. We wear one face, Behold a common glass. Above him, in the upper shafts, Dreamer heard a Volcan scream. Chapter 8. A humanist in choking sea called for help and presently received in full intensity advice. You must swim if you would be. Rescue breeds dependency. Self-reliance makes one free. That's nice, he said, and floated easily. And dead. When they had finished singing, the world hater turned to leave, then turned back again, as if his final words were more important than the rest. I go now into Terra to tell all of her people my good news. I'll preach to every creature the doctrine of the glass. Terra shall be saved by this clear, final image of herself. One miner, touched by his last words, cried out, I too believe. Give me the chain and glass. As the Dark Prince handed him the insignia, he accidentally dropped it on the floor. As the Dark Prince reached to pick it up, his silver cape slid to the side, showing that his tunic underneath was cut, the fabric frayed. The gloomy cloth was stained with blood. A hideous wound was exposed, a wound that told of conflict in the skies. I saw you there, cried Dreamer. You are the world hater. Where did you see me? Asked the Titan Prince, stunned that one could guess his great charade. In the other realm, Dreamer said. Other realm? Yes, even now you wear an injury ill-gotten in another world. You have been too long in frozen earth, poor man. There are no other realms. You are the prisoner of time and space like all the rest of us. Terror is the only base of life in the lonely sky. Men are doomed as long as they pretend to make celestial friends. This planet's days are done unless men cease to speak of saints and singers or trolls and witches in the sky. Here, Dreamer, behold the glass and bear our late come hope, the mark of peace. Dreamer fled in terror from the room. His flight left those witnesses in silent stupefaction. The only sounds were the black night's labored breathing and the muffled far-off cries of Volcans furious in their lust for fire and flesh. Aware they could not leave the mines, the Prince of Mirrors yet called out, Go, proclaim the glass to all of Terra. And while he spoke, he seemed to rise and then dissolve like smoke. Tears came into the eyes of those beholding his elusive disappearance. They looked at their faces in the little mirrors on their chains and sang again the hymn of man. The gods are dead, and without dread we cheer. Join hands to reach and cry, we shall not pass. We sing in confidence without a fear. We wear one face, behold, a common glass. Chapter 9. A cosmic coma paralyzed the star. The phantom surgeons sutured tenderly. A passing comet flashed above the scar, and light displayed a planetectomy. Hi, Blue. Across the crystal range, the town of Thade lay sleeping. Like Vard, she had refused the mark of Elan and the counsel of his peace. Her houses were walled in stone and roofed in slate instead of thatch. She dared to hope this double favor might protect her from the fiery fate of Varge. But flying reptiles screamed just ahead of dawn, and fire fell everywhere. The entire city died. Fear stalked the living cities. Elan won the praise of men. Desperate children sang in terror. Where have the little cities gone? The shadow of the volcans passed. The flaming air denied the truce. The flying dragons have let loose. The very soil is poisoned where the fire once hung in Elan's air. Terror brought submissiveness. The planet filled with sheep. The armies now met frail replies, and thousands every dawn received the chain of fear. Singarians alone refused the glass. Many hastened to the glistening new capital of Eleanor, the city of man. Only in the center of the empire were they safe from Elan's fiery wrath. Everywhere in Eleanor, the Prince of Mirrors preached the doctrine of the glass and sang the hymn of man. Dreamer knew it was not safe to stay within the mines. Mass arrest of all Singarians was coming, and he had been more vocal than the rest. He knew he had to flee the mines and seek the enclave of the capital. He knew he had to hurry. His dissatisfaction for the chain and glass would not be tolerated long. So he prepared to leave. His journey would be a desperate flight up 1,000 feet of icy shafts that passed the volcan's layers. Once outside the caves of death, the air would be so cold that even brief exposure would be fatal. 7 days through icy crags and narrow ledges would he travel to the steps of Varge and Thade, whose ashes inspired fear. "Oh, singer," prayed the dreamer, "may your sacrifice protect me from the volcan's fire and shield me from the empire's ice." Chapter 10. Evil finds a ready home where beauty is despised and ugliness enthroned. The Prince of Mirrors returned from preaching throughout the empire. On every continent of Eleanor, men stood enthralled, staring at their images. "We wear one face. Behold a common glass," they sang. Elan closed all the temples to the troubadour. He decreed that all who sang the star song would be imprisoned. Beneath the volcan's lairs, and yet 3 caves above the praying miner, making ready for his flight, Elan and the Prince of Mirrors met. Their covenant was brief. "You need my doctrine," said the Prince of Mirrors. "You need my armies more if you would make this world you so despise sleep in terror and despair," said Elan. "We are in league, then?" the world hater asked. "We are? Where is your book of truth?" "Here," the hater said, pulling the mirror from his pocket. "Here is the doctrine by which men most bend to our control. Man's fascination with himself. In this small glass is subjugation so complete it wipes away the universe. As long as men behold themselves, they will look no higher, my dear Elan." "Then I pledge to our new partnership the fire of fear," the emperor enjoined. "And I, the image of complete despondency, the face of man. I shall hold their loyalty in fear. I shall hold their faith in ignorance. Together we control, without a challenge to our sovereignty. I go to burn a city, and I to chain man to himself." The Black Knight tugged at his chin until his face slipped sideways from his head, and he held his leering visage in his hand. The emperor, too, began to pull his cheek. His face split away before his ear and then slid free. They stood in hideous blankness, and at length the world hater lifted up his face, the mask smiling horror in his hand. Through its open lips and eyes, the room behind was clearly visible. It leered and spoke. We do agree in common hate. Without your lies, I pledge myself, said the flattened face of Elan. Then each man with his empty hand received the other's face and laid it on his vacant plane of flesh and smiled. The faces were identical. So were the hearts. And that's the end of today's reading, chapters 6 through 10 of the finale from the Singer Trilogy. I pray everyone has a good day, and until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and grant you his peace. Bye, everyone.